All right, Fox Sports, Undisputed, Skip and Shannon, giving their playoff predictions. This should be a good one. I'll stop the video here and there to give my opinion. Let's get into it.
I'm going to start with the West first. I think it's going to be some very compelling series out there. I think there's some teams that's going to get nicked along the way, but I'm going to stick with the chalk. I'm going to say the Suns is going to beat the Grizzlies, but I'm going to say the Suns win it because of the experience. I think having been there before, battle tested, and in clutch situations, they're almost unbeatable. Now, I understand, I know what Ja, and I know how good the Grizz are. Without Ja, they're even better with Ja. But I just think with the bodies that they can throw at him, be it Bridges, be it Crowder, they got a lot of guys that can get up into him. But the thing that makes the Grizzlies so tough to beat, Skip, is that they got a lot of guys. I mean, they're not superstars, quote unquote, like Ja, but they got a lot of guys that can make plays.
The Grizzlies have superstars at their role. Desmond Bane is a superstar at his role. Dylan Brooks is a superstar at his role. Jaren Jackson, as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, he might win it this year. He's a superstar at his role. Steven Adams, defending the interior of the paint, he's a superstar at his role. Ja Morant is the only superstar on the team. I wouldn't label Ja Morant a superstar. I would say he's a star. But they have a bunch of guys, even guys on the bench. Guys on the bench, everybody's just a star at their role. The Grizzlies have a bunch of guys who play their role perfectly. That's a team that is really bigger than the sum. The sum of their parts is bigger than individual play. That's why they were so good even without Ja Morant. Ja Morant is there for the fourth quarter. Ja Morant is there for the last 2 minutes of the game. Ja Morant is there when they go on a cold stretch. But throughout the course of the game, all the pieces they're interchangeable because they're running a system and all the guys are bought in, and that coach is doing a hell of a job. Taylor Jenkins, I got no problem if he wins Coach of the Year.
Bane can make plays. Dylan Brooks can make plays, and he can D. They got the big guy in the middle. Big Adams is going to rebound, going to defend, going to set great picks so Ja can get downhill. They got Melton. They got guys coming off the bench that can make plays. But I just think with Chris Paul, and I think one of the reasons why they're so good in clutch situations is because they got Chris Paul, who's an all-time great point guard, who's always going to get you in the best situation possible. They got a guy in D-Book that's...
Well, Chris Paul is kind of like a catch-22 because he's so great in regular season clutch moments, and he's so great early in the playoffs in clutch moments, but we've seen Chris Paul have meltdowns in Game 6s and Game 7s, and we've seen Chris Paul melt down in the finals and Western Conference Finals. And, man, I mean, Chris Paul, yeah, it's crazy because Chris Paul, in situations that aren't that big to him, he's very clutch in. But in the biggest moments, Chris Paul has proven to be very unclutch, actually. He's proven to be a choker. Last year, he was choking. The Suns should have beat the Bucks. They were up 2-0. They had an opportunity to win games in Milwaukee. Even when they came back to Phoenix, he blew it. The ball bouncing off his leg, losing the dribble or whatever, and then Devin Booker getting stripped by Drew Holiday and Chris Paul fouling Giannis on that lob. He didn't have to foul Giannis. Chris Paul just got frustrated, and that's 2 games in the finals that he he blew it for his team in the finals. So Chris Paul's a catch-22 when it comes to talking about Chris Paul as a clutch player.
That's unafraid. That is not afraid to take big shots and big moments and make them, and neither is Chris Paul. Chris Paul's going to get downhill, he's going to get to his spot, and he's going to elevate. And I love the way Ayton is playing. Ayton is playing, so y'all don't want to give me this max contract. But somebody going to give me a max contract after what they see me do in the regular season and what I'm about to do in the postseason.
Yeah, they got to give Ayton the bag. Just stop playing around. The Suns' ownership, they're known for being very cheap. Just give him the bag. Ayton is the perfect fit for this team. Ayton is the perfect modern-day big man. He doesn't really post up a lot. He moves well. He's not clogging up the paint. He has good touch. He doesn't shoot the 3 ball, but Ayton can make a mid-range shot. He finishes well around the rim. He's a good rebounder. He's a great defender in the interior. The only issue I have with Ayton is that he can be mentally soft sometimes. Sometimes it's really not too bad. It's not too bad. He doesn't have demons on the court. He's not terribly mentally soft, but he can be a little mentally soft. And then also, he doesn't have the best of hands, and that's just something you're going to have to deal with Aiden. He doesn't have great hands. He'll fumble the ball sometimes when he has clean looks, or he'll drop the ball when you need him to just go up with it. But that's going to happen every once in a while. But he'll make up for it by like hitting a tough hook shot in the paint, where like the opposing team center is just all over him, and he just makes some crazy ass. It feels like he just turns around and throws up that hook shot, and it'd be going in. So kudos to him.
I'm going to take the Suns. I'm going to say they won a close series over the Grizzlies. And in the East, Skip, I think
I got the Suns winning the West too. I don't know how he has the Grizzlies over the Warriors. I don't really know how anybody has the Grizzlies over the Warriors. Once again, the Grizzlies are a real good team. They got a bunch of people who are stars at their role, superstars at their role, but it's the Warriors, man. Like, the Warriors, when healthy, they haven't shown us any signs of slowing down. Like, when the Warriors are healthy and clicking, they haven't shown us any signs of slowing down. Now, I know they're kind of figuring it out because guys have been in and out the lineup, and it's playoff time. They got their first playoff game tomorrow versus Denver, and Steph is playing limited minutes. He's supposed to play limited minutes tomorrow or whatever. Like, so I get it. I get why people are a little skeptical on the Warriors, but man, the Grizzlies are just gonna have to beat the Warriors for me to believe it. Like, I'm not gonna believe it till I see it. I think if the Warriors losing to Memphis would be a big letdown. I know Memphis is a 2 seed. They won more games or whatever. The Memphis has actually fared pretty well against the Warriors in recent years. Knocked them out the play-in tournament last year, but I don't know, man. I just got to see it to believe it. Like, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Steve Kerr, Jordan Poole. Now you got Jordan Poole emerging. Andre Iguodala still around. Andrew Wiggins, whatever he gives you. We know he's kind of hit or miss, but I mean, man, like, it's still the Warriors at the end of the day. The Grizzlies, the Grizzlies beating the Warriors is like letting your little brother finally beat you in the backyard playing basketball. Like, I just got to see it to believe it. I'm always going to lean Warriors over the Grizzlies. Now, Warriors versus the Suns are a whole different animal. The Suns were in the finals last year. I think the Suns are on a mission right now. I made a video earlier this season comparing the Suns to the Green Bay Packers, but, you know, as the season goes on, I feel like that comparison might have been a little too tough on Phoenix, and Phoenix might be just fine in the postseason, but we'll see. We'll see. Once again, Chris Paul, he kind of fumbles the rock when it matters most, a little bit too much for my liking, but Devin Booker is getting better and better, and maybe he'll be able to make up for any issues that Chris Paul has. So I'm going Phoenix. It's tough to really go against the Warriors for me, knowing just what the Warriors can do when they're clicking, but I'm going Phoenix to win the West. But Memphis over the Warriors, once again, taking Memphis over the Warriors, I just don't understand it. Maybe people are seeing something that I don't see, but I got to go with the big dogs.
Second round matchup might be the best series of the entire Eastern Conference playoff, because I believe it will be the Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Boston Celtics, and that.
Agree, and I can't wait for that series. I do believe that the Celtics are going to beat the Brooklyn Nets. I just don't think that you can put together pieces like that. Now they're saying Ben Simmons is going to come later in the series. Like, you got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving with a bunch of guys who are just like, you know, they don't have the best core supporting cast around that court. Like, it's just KD and Kyrie getting buckets, and, you know, expecting those guys to both go for 40 every night against the best defense in the NBA. Like, Boston has the best defense in the NBA. They have two scorers who can bail them out at any given time. Marcus Smart is a guy who plays better in big games. The coach has all these guys buying in. They're swinging the ball. They're making three-pointers. Like, there's a lot to love about the Boston Celtics. I love the Boston Celtics this season. And I think that they beat the Brooklyn Nets, and I think that they play the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round. And I got the Celtics beating the Milwaukee Bucks. And I got the Celtics going to the third round and playing, I believe it's going to be Miami, because I think Miami wins this first round against Atlanta. They might get pushed a little bit. And then, you know, Philly, Toronto, whoever wins that one, maybe Philly in 7, maybe Toronto can sneak out of there and win that series. But whoever wins that series, I think that they play Miami, and Miami gets them. I think Miami gets whoever wins that series. Miami can beat Philly, and Miami, Boston in the third round. I like Boston winning that, and I got Boston going to the NBA Finals. I got Suns Boston in my NBA Finals as of today, day before the playoffs start. Give me the Suns over the Celtics in 6. I like the Suns in 6 over the Boston Celtics. Devin Booker Finals MVP.
That's going to be a heck of a matchup. I believe it's going to go 7 games, but I believe the Bucks with their big three of Giannis, Holiday, and Middleton will be enough. Both teams very, very deep with Portis and Lopez back. I love what Milwaukee's done, so I'm going to say Milwaukee over the Heat in the East. I'm going to say the Suns over the Grizzlies in the West. And I'm going to, you know what, Skip? I think it's going to play out again. I'm going to say the Bucks over the Suns in the NBA Finals.
I'm not mad at that pick either. I'm not mad at Bucks over Suns because if the Suns get the Bucks, I could see the Bucks beating them just off how the matchups are, just off them beating them last year. But I could see the Suns beating the Bucks too. That's really a toss-up. Last year I was very confident in the Bucks over the Suns. This year it would be more of a toss-up. My issue with the Bucks this season is the Bucks don't have that same defense. With Brook Lopez coming back and he's still rusty, still figuring it out. He's not moving as well. And then you got no more PJ Tucker. It's a different group. Like this Milwaukee Bucks team this year with Giannis having that playoff experience and Giannis' game just looks even smoother. And then Drew Holiday's having a great shooting year. Like offensively, this Bucks team might be better than last year. That when it matters most, they might hit even more shots. But I just don't think they'll get as many stops as they were able to get last year. And we got to remember, Milwaukee almost lost to the Nets last year, and Kyrie was out, and James Harden was doing a classic James Harden performance. He just wasn't showing up. And people could say James Harden was injured. Whatever the case is, James Harden never shows up. So injured or not, he just didn't show up as usual. And, KD was an overtime away from beating the Milwaukee Bucks basically by himself. Like, pretty much by himself. So now that the Nets have Kyrie Irving, the Celtics have all this going for them, I don't know if the East is going to be the same cakewalk this year for the Bucks as it was last year, because the Bucks got the Hawks last year instead of the Sixers. The Bucks got in the first round, who'd the Bucks get? They got Miami and they swept them, got revenge on them. That Miami team last year wasn't all that. So, I don't know if the Bucks are going to get the most favorable matchups like they did last season.
Rock Chalk Jayhawk says Shannon Sharp, if I did not know better, I would have thought you went to Kansas.
Well, but Skip, I did not know Vegas had the same matchup last night.
It's just a coincidence.
Man, I ain't got time.
Yo, Skip is like, bro, Skip be getting on Shannon and Skip be telling Shannon that he got no balls. Basically, that's what Skip be wanting to say on live TV. When Skip yells at Shannon and he says, bro, have the courage of your conviction, that Skip's way as an old white dude on live TV and not being able to curse or say anything too crazy. That's him telling Shannon, have some fucking balls, Because Shannon does this. Shannon will take, like, the most obvious picks, or, like, Shannon will take the safe picks, and, like, as long as things go well, Shannon's going to look cool. But Shannon doesn't ever, like, predict something crazy and, like, have some crazy outcome. Like, usually Shannon takes whatever kind of, like, the obvious choices, more or less. And Skip kind of balances it out because Skip will say something off the wall, or Skip will pick somebody or something that nobody else is picking. So they balance each other out pretty well. But yeah, Shannon just plays it a little too safe sometimes. And him saying that he doesn't know this was the Vegas odds. I mean, how do you not know that Vegas has the Suns winning the West? Like, everybody knows Vegas has the Suns winning the West. And as far as the East goes, like, Bucks or Nets, yeah, whatever. Maybe he didn't know that.
I ain't betting. So why do I care what Vegas is doing? I'm not betting.
Yeah, y'all don't be betting. Y'all just be betting Mountain Dew that y'all are never going to ever give each other. Like, Shannon owes Skip so many cases of Mountain Dew, man.
Must be think I'm Mattress Jack or whatever his name is.
Shannon Sharp says, run it back.
Skip would be in his grave if he drank all the Mountain Dew that Shannon owes him. Like, Shannon owes this man so many cases of Mountain Dew. Like, it's funny that they be betting Mountain Dew. That's funny.
Run it back.
Just put the tape in of last year and let's just watch it again. Right?
I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay. While you're rocking the chalk, I am sashaying out to the end of a very thin limb.
No, you're not.
Yes,
no, you're
I
not.
am.
No,
And that limb underneath me right now, I can hear it starting to crack. and it's a long fall down, and I could look like a fool before this is over, but I don't think so. So here I go. I'm going to plunge. No chalk for me. You can have all the chalk you want. I like Diet Dew better than chalk.
Okay.
Okay, before I plunge, I have one caveat.
No!
One asterisk. I picked the Nets before the season started.
Yes!
And I will stick with the Nets only if I see that by games, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, if I see that Ben Simmons is making a legitimate contribution on a nightly basis, which I have.
Talk about having no balls. You cannot do that, Skip. Skip, you cannot make a pick but say if this or if that happens, then this. I would take the Nets too. I think anybody would take the Nets if you knew that everything was just going to work out, fine and dandy. But the reason why I'm taking the Celtics over the Nets is I suspect that Simmons either isn't going to be able to play, or if he does play, the Celtics are such a good defensive team that he's going to be rusty and he's going to have a hard time fitting into the offense, or the Celtics are just going to use his, his inability to shoot the ball, and they're going to sag off of him and send even more bodies at KD and Kyrie. Like, that's just how I see it. And, I see him making some mistakes on the floor or having some type of miscommunication if he's out there. And I just think, good fucking luck if you think you're going to come off the bench or, come out of nowhere after not playing an entire season and guard Jaylen Brown. Like, good fucking luck if you think you're going to come out of nowhere and guard Jason Tatum. Like, you got no fucking shot. I know Ben Simmons was a good defender, and let's just clarify this about Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons was a great help defender. Ben Simmons was a great help defender. He was a very intelligent player on the basketball floor, and he was a guy who could get beat and he could recover because of his size. Ben Simmons was a guy who fared very well against people who were his size, and he also fared well against players who are more kind of finesse, like a Luka. He guarded Luka very well because Luka's very much finesse, and he would body Luka up. And who else? He fared pretty well against Trae Young. If Trae Young had an off shooting night or whatever, he could kind of roam around with Trae Young a little bit. He was able to use his size to bother him a little bit. But the problem with Ben Simmons on the defensive end is Ben Simmons gets beat off the dribble. Ben Simmons gets beat off the dribble. Like, that's the, if there's one little weakness about Ben Simmons' defensive game, it's you can beat Ben Simmons off the dribble. He's not a guy who sticks to you like glue the way that Klay Thompson in his prime would stick to offensive players like glue. He doesn't stick to you like glue the way a Mikal Bridges or a Maurice Thybulle stay in front of Matisse Thybulle, excuse me, not Maurice, but Matisse Thybulle. He doesn't stick to you on glue the way that Thybulle does, or the way Bridges does. He's not that type of defender. He gets beat and he recovers. He gets beat and he closes out, and he's long enough to still bother it a little bit. But a Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, my point is, they can blow by him and they can kick it out for threes, or they can blow by him, and if he's not explosive enough coming back, he won't affect the shot because those guys aren't going to lay it up. Those guys are going to dunk it.
Have serious doubts about. In fact, I don't believe it until I see it. They say he hasn't done anything yet. Is he going to go 5-on-5? I don't know what he's doing. Does he really have a bad back? Does he have a bad psyche? I don't know what he's got. But if you show me, if you demonstrate by games 4, 5, and 6 that he is making a legitimate contribution on defense, a defense alone, every single night, I'm talking about 15 to 20 quality minutes where I say, oh, I see you. I get that. That is the missing link to a championship team because they lost James Harden and they had to replace him with another member of the Big Three that has a completely different skill set than James does.
Don't get me wrong, if Ben Simmons does end up getting out there on the floor, like Ben Simmons, he might even have some highlight plays or some very spectacular plays because I like Ben Simmons as a player. Like, I'm not as down on him as other people are. Ben Simmons is great in the open court. As much as I was saying about his getting beat off the dribble, he's still a really, really good defender. Still a very good defender, So if he comes back playing that type of defense and he pushes the ball well, in spurts he could make some good plays. But overall, I just don't see you can't just plug and play. Like, this isn't 2K. You're going against teams that have great chemistry and that have been working well with each other all year and figuring it out. And basketball is just so much about flow and rhythm, and you're just putting guys together. It's just hard to beat top level professional teams with great coaches trying to do that shit. this is just too much for KD and Kyrie to overcome. Like, as someone who enjoys watching basketball, I would love to see KD and Kyrie just give the whole league buckets and win the whole thing. Like, I kind of like rooting for the villains. Like, rooting for the villains just makes the storyline more interesting. Like, it would be dope to see KD and Kyrie go off and score 40 apiece every night, combine for 85. Like, just do net shit, have games where they combine for 90. Like, just crazy. Like, like have games where they combine for 8. Like, just crazy shit. That would be sick. You guys know I said that KD and Giannis is a debate and it's very close, but I say that Giannis is the best player right now, but KD's right on his tail. You know what I mean? Like, the list is subject to change. KD is right on his tail, and Kyrie Irving, you guys know I made the video. Kyrie Irving is a top 10 player in the league, in my opinion. Like, the dude's unstoppable. We saw it against Cleveland. He was making every single shot. Like, he couldn't miss if he wanted to. Like, shots that were looking like they were off, and he was making everything. So Kyrie Irving is unstoppable. He has the biggest bag in NBA history, the biggest bag of tricks. He can do the most with the ball, finishing, shooting, everything. You guys know what it is. His post game, everything. So I would love to see it, but they got to overcome horrible coaching. They got to overcome role players who are just still figuring it out. Like, they got to overcome, just lackluster defense. Like, it's just too much to ask for. Simply put, it's just too much to ask for.
We're going to talk about James in a few minutes. I think he's going to be a liability for Joel Embiid. I love Ben Simmons.
I agree. I think James Harden is going to struggle this playoffs, which is nothing new. Like, Toronto, that's a nightmare for him because even if they beat Toronto, he's not going to put up that many points. He might have some assists, but we'll see how many times James Harden goes for 30 in a 7-game series versus Toronto, because I think that series is going 7 games. We'll see how many times James Harden scores 30. I'd be surprised if he scored more than if he had over 30 points more than once. I'd be surprised.
I love the fit of Ben Simmons much better than James in this group, but I need him to actually be able to contribute, and I don't know that. If you can tell me a yes or no, I'll do it right here.
No, but Skip, you can't use the caveat because now you're going to...
Well, you can't do that. Like Shannon said, you can't have no caveat. So I would say just assume that he's not going to bring it, and if that's the case, then if we're assuming that he's not going to, be all that, then I'm going with the Celtics. And I just can't assume that Ben Simmons is going to come and save the day. So if I have to assume, I'm going to assume that he's not going to be all that, or that he's not going to play. And that helps me even more with my Celtics prediction.
See? Well, they didn't have Ben Simmons.
Okay, well, how do I know? I said it on the day of the trade. I said, this is a big home run for the Nets. They got 3 starters for James Harden, and they got the starter that they needed. A back-to-back first-team all-defensive player in Ben Simmons, 6'10", long, agile, and what he did to little Trae Young in that Game 7, it was spectacular. It wasn't enough, but 5 of 23, he was all over. He can guard little point guards.
But that was after Trae Young had basically averaged 30 for the series, so he kept him quiet in Game 7.
Okay.
But for the series, Trae Young had averaged 30.
All right, but I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't believe it, so I can't pick the Nets right now.
So who you picking?
Okay, now here we go. Let's go back to the West.
Oh, no, you're not going to go just stick with these?
No, I'm going to go West first.
Okay.
I will save my East for later.
Okay.
Build the tension.
Okay.
That's what you do in TV.
Okay.
Yo, Skip is a character talking about build the tension. Hey, but man, he might as well give his East pick first. He was already talking about it.
Okay.
In the West, I have been raving about Memphis all year long.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. The harder I look, the more I see.
Yeah, Skip was the first guy I heard on TV saying Memphis winning the West. He was the first guy I heard. He actually had Memphis winning it all earlier in the season. So Skip's the one guy who can bang the Memphis bandwagon.
To your point, they went 20-5 without Ja. And they were really good, but it's not like, oh, they're better without Ja. No, they're even better with Ja.
Yeah.
To your point. I can't find a flaw. I can't find a reason not to pick them even over Phoenix. Phoenix had an all-great year.
Yeah.
They had such a good year that I was making the case that somebody on that team deserves some MVP, at least recognition, and they're getting none. I thought Devin Booker should have been the MVP.
Skip, they might have won 70 games had Chris Paul not gotten injured.
I got it. I agree. I got it. Monty Williams, runaway coach of the year. Way to go.
Yeah.
I give you all the above. This Memphis team has arrived right before your very eyes, and I just look at the numbers. I look at the numbers. Okay, they're fourth in defense. That'll work.
Yes.
They're fourth in point differential. That'll really work. They're second in points scored per game. That'll work. Mm-hmm. And they're third in pace. So they are rushing it up the court.
Yeah.
And finally, on top of all that, the cherry on top, they're first in the NBA in rebounding. So they're not just run and gun.
Right.
They're a badass bunch.
Yes.
And now let me do your point first. I'm just going to read these names off, okay? This is how deep they go, to your point. Okay, so we start with Ja. I'm going down the scoring list on this team. We start with Ja, and then there's Dylan Brooks, who's about as badass a two-way player he's got in the league. And Desmond Bane, all he does is shoot 44% from three during the race. 44%? Jaren Jackson Jr. should be Defensive Player of the Year to me. Okay, that's just me. Steven Adams, what a great addition he was. He leads them in rebounds with double digits a game, 10 a game.
Strongest player in the NBA, Steven Adams.
DeAnthony Melton, every time I watch him, he gets better. I say, he looks like he's got star quality to me, right? Brandon Clark and little Tyus Jones and Zaire Williams.
You got
all the way down to Sloan.
Tyus Jones is, I believe Tyus Jones leads the NBA in assist-to-turnover ratio. Like, Tyus Jones does not turn the ball over, and he runs the show very well. Like, he's the perfect floor general in terms of getting the ball to the right guys and getting out the way and making sure that a shot goes up every time. As a point guard, it's very important that you don't turn the ball over. The only time I think it's okay for a point guard to be turning the ball over is like a Trae Young, who literally does everything for Atlanta. Trae Young can turn the ball over. I think he led the league in turnovers. I'm okay with that because we know what Trae Young's bringing every single night. I mean, Trae Young is the Atlanta Hawks offense. But besides situations like that, it's very important for a point guard to have a high assist-to-turnover ratio. Like Tyus Jones, I don't have the stats in front of me, but Tyus Jones' assist-to-turnover ratio, it's remarkable. I know he does a good job with that every year. I don't know if Tyus Jones is even averaging assists per game in his NBA career. Like he does not turn the ball over.
Kyle Anderson, all he does is play basketball. He just knows how to make basketball plays. And the guy I've raved about all year, John Contra, comes in and he's making 41% of his threes off the bench. And he comes in just completely fearless. I've got this. I'm going to shoot it every time, and I'm going to make it almost every time.
Right.
And that leads me to a quote that I read last night, actually early this morning, from Ja. This sums it up for me. Because he was asked about, here come Pat Bev and the trash-talking T-Wolves, and they do talk some trash. And Anthony Edwards was saying after the game that they were afraid of me, talking about the Clippers. They're afraid?
Yeah, right.
I don't know if they're afraid of you, but if you think so, way to go. Here's Ja's response quote. We ain't ducking no smoke. We run up the chimney. Love that quote. Somebody comes to this organization, they know we can't back down. That's soft person tendencies. We don't got no soft guys on this team. There ain't no running in the M, man. The M, I love that. That's the essence of who these guys are. Because you want to talk about fearless, the whole team. They walk on the court with a body language that just says, we're here and we've arrived, and we're just better than you are, and we're about to show you. And
yeah, the Grizzlies have a great swagger on the court. Like, everybody on that team just plays with confidence, and because they play with that confidence, it makes them so much better. Like, their confidence it's almost like they will shots in, or their demeanor just imposes on players on the other team, and it helps get an extra couple misses or two. I mean, for real, it feels like the energy that they bring it changes the outcomes of games. So, that's very good on Memphis's part. It's very impressive, but let's see if at any point in the playoffs, if that kind of dies out, or if they start to doubt themselves a little bit, because they are a young team. I know they made the first round of the playoffs last year, but they're still a young team. So we'll see if at any point that kind of diminishes a little bit and how they respond to that. Like, this is a team that hasn't really faced too much adversity, so how are they going to respond once they have some adversity? I'm very interested to see.
If you don't like it, we'll do it to you and tell you about it.
It used to be the grindhouse because they just grind you down.
No, it's not grinding anymore.
When they had Zebo, they had Gasol, and they had Mike Conley. You come in, and they were tough. But this team, they can get up and down. They can D you up because they're a big team. You mentioned with Steven Adams.
They still got a little bit of grindhouse to them, though. Like, the Grizzlies still got some grindhouse to them because, like Skip said, they lead the league in rebounding. Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson, very big team. Dylan Brooks, very physical player. Ja Morant, he's going to come at you and try to dunk over your head. They don't shoot a lot of threes. They attack the basket. So it's like the Grizzlies, they still have that grit feel to them. Of course, it's not Zach Randolph, and they're not just throwing it in the post every single play and just trying to body you up, but they're still a very physical team. For the modern NBA, they're a physical team compared to most teams.
They got 16 and a half, Jaren Jackson Jr. So, yes, they can command the paint. Yes, they can challenge you inside because they got two guys that can protect the rim. Dylan Brooks can D up on the perimeter. Bain can D up on the perimeter. They got guys that can D you up, Skip. But I just think in the end, Chris Paul and Devin Brooks is going to be a little bit
Devin Booker.
Too much for Memphis.
Okay, you could be right on just sheer experience.
Yeah.
Chris Paul could be the X factor difference maker. He's just been here and done it so many times, and he won me over for the first time ever against the Clippers last year.
Last game, that Saturday game.
Late third quarter, early fourth, that closeout game 6.
Yeah.
It was just spectacular. Way to go, Chris. They couldn't get it done to get it home because Giannis just took over, and I thought Giannis made Ayton look like he's about 5'11".
Yeah.
In the finals. So we'll see how that plays out.
So if they get back to the finals, they're going to build a wall, or they're going to let Ayton go on and one-on-one again.
All right. But you still got Giannis again.
I still got Giannis again.
All right. Now back to my East pick.
Just going back on what they were saying about the West, both these guys have Grizzlies, Suns in the Western Conference Finals. They have the Grizzlies over the Warriors and getting to the Western Conference Finals. Skip has the Grizzlies winning the West. I think that if it were to be Grizzlies versus Suns, if the Grizzlies do somehow beat the Warriors, a Grizzlies-Suns Western Conference Finals, I'm going to have to go Suns because both teams play great defense, both teams can rebound, both teams have playmakers, both teams have role players, both teams have good coaches, but the Suns have more experience and the Suns just have more three-point shooting. And that three-point shooting is going to cost the Grizzlies a little bit in this playoffs because it's one thing to go against the Detroit Pistons or go against some bottom feeder team in the NBA, one of the weaker teams in the NBA, and they have a good three-point shooting night and you don't, and you still manage to win. But it's going to be very hard going against these top teams in the Western Conference when they're making threes and you're not. Their weakness is shooting. And I just think that's going to come back to bite them when you're playing against a team like Phoenix who can get all the stops that you can get. They can create like you can create. They have a better go-to scorer in Devin Booker than anybody on the Grizzlies as far as just someone you give the ball to and just tell them to go get a basket. Devin Booker is going to be the biggest bucket on the court. And, at the end of the day, the ball's being kicked out to Jay Crowder. The ball's being kicked out to Mikal Bridges. The ball's being kicked out to Cam Johnson. Like, these guys, it feels like they don't miss when they get open threes. Like, they just cash them. They rain them down. So, I think those threes in the half court, being able to drive and kick and get those threes compared to the Grizzlies who drive and finish at the rim, I think that eventually those threes beat twos, and I think that the Timberwolves are going to be able to get a win or two against the Grizzlies. I think it goes 6 games. Maybe the T-Wolves win 2 at home. I think the T-Wolves are going to be able to steal a couple games or so, because they're just going to outshoot the Grizzlies. And you can win games in the NBA nowadays just being the worst team, not being the better team, not having the better players, but just getting hot from 3. If you get hot from 3, if you make 23s in a game, good night.
There's one team that has been hiding in plain sight all year.
And the Wolves can do that. The Wolves can make 23s in a game.
Here, atop the Heat. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one team that is now laying in the weeds on top of the Heat, right? And nobody's talking about the Miami Heat, who won the East by 2 games.
Right.
I have liked them.
Nobody's talking about the Miami Heat because we're not going to take a team serious that relies on Tyler Hero to score 20 points a game. Like, if you're relying on Tyler Hero to be like the main bucket getter for your team, like you're not winning the championship. You're just not. Tyler Hero, he's a cool player or whatever. He gets streaky and he can't miss some games, but Tyler Hero cannot just he cannot be like some big time reliable player that you go to for buckets like that. He just can't. Jimmy Butler, he's just, he's a dog. Sometimes he just wills the ball into the basket, but he's been struggling so much shooting from the perimeter. Most of his points have been coming inside or at the free throw line. He's had a tough year shooting the ball. I don't see it getting any better. He's kind of struggled in the clutch actually this season. So, it's hard. It's hard when they just rely on committee so much. Like, the Celtics are a team that plays by committee. The Grizzlies are a team that plays by committee. Shit, the Suns are a team that play by committee. But when it's time to get a bailout, Devin Booker's there, or Jason Tatum's there, Jaylen Brown's there, Ja Morant is there. Like, the Heat are just super duper committee. And when they're not committee, it's Tyler Hero or Jimmy Butler. And, those guys just aren't on the same tier as the other guys that I just mentioned. Like, offensively, as purely getting buckets and doing it at an efficient level, they're just not there. So when the playoff defense racks up, I expect Jimmy Buckets and Tyler Hero to miss a few more shots and for Miami to be in some tough situations. Now, with that being said, I think Miami has just enough to get past Atlanta. Atlanta might make it interesting, but Atlanta's just not there this season. I think Miami takes that series. And if Miami gets the Sixers, I just think they match up so favorably with the Sixers. And if they get the Raptors, I think the Raptors are a team that kind of plays by committee. So that kind of works in the Heat favor, and the Heat can. It'll be a battle if the Heat and the Raptors play each other. Like, that's gonna be a war. That's gonna be a war. But I'd lean Heat a little bit in that, and Heat Celtics Eastern Conference Finals. Give me the Celtics because, like I said, they have guys who can bail them out when things aren't going their way. And the Heat are they're just too committee for me. It's good to have a team, have a culture, Heat culture. We hear all about it. Coach Spo, if he's not the best coach in the NBA, he's number 2 right behind Ty Lue. Like, he's right there in that conversation. Ty Lue, Nick Nurse, Eric Spoelstra, the most elite coaches in the NBA, but the Heat are just too much committee from me. I'm surprised that Skip Bayless went there.
All year, I told you from day one, I love the additions to this team. And now I look down their scoring list, and obviously Jimmy Butler is about as clutch a big game shooter, shot maker as there is in the league. I don't love him. I'm not sure I'd love playing with him, and they did have their incident,
right.
And I believe that incident was a north-south incident, and I think they went north off it. That's just me. Tyler Hero, talk about fearless coming in and shooting it.
Oh, he's definitely 6th man of the year.
Yeah. Bam. He's just a force. He's not big, but he plays much bigger than he is. And then I thought Kyle Lowry was a great addition. He has not played to the level. He's not put up the numbers that I thought he would.
I agree.
But you want to talk about playoff guts and experience?
Right.
Victor Oladipo, I'm a big fan of his, and he has just now come back, and it's a small sample size, but look at what he's doing from three. He's making his threes like crazy. He's shooting 43% from three so far in just 8 games. But he's doing. Duncan Robinson hasn't had a great shooting year because everybody now doubles him because they don't want him to get off.
I think they're bringing him off the bench, and I forget where he was in the starting rotation. I think he's a role player now.
And then Strus, and then PJ Tucker. Talk about a role player. If you need to D somebody up, he's the best defender I've ever seen on Kevin Durant. Right. And we saw it last year in those 7 games. And then Markieff Morris. Maybe he's not quite Marcus, but he's pretty good. Yeah. And I just gave you the makings of a championship team. Yeah. Because this team on grit and
they have the makings of a championship team, but they need one guy to come over there. Like, if Kawhi came over to Miami, if Paul George came over to Miami, like, they need one guy who can come, just like how CJ came to the Pelicans and get them like a bucket getter on the perimeter. Like, Ingram gets buckets too, but CJ's just like that go-to perimeter shot maker, shot taker for the Pelicans now. they need to get something like that. Like, they need somebody who can just take big shots, make big shots. If you got a Damian Lillard over to Miami, but I mean, they got Kyle Lowry at point guard, so fitting Dame would be kind of tough. But, like I said, a Paul George, a Kawhi, if they had some type of, wing to go alongside Jimmy Butler, where you could maybe move PJ Tucker to the bench, or whatever shooter that they start a Max Strus or Duncan Robinson. If you could take that shooter and take both those shooters, put them on the bench, and start a Paul George, a Kyle Lowry, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, Bam Adebayo lineup, that lineup would be insane. That would be an insane lineup. Just defensively, nobody would score. Offensively, you could give it to PG to go get a bucket. And then Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, all these guys could be like default second, third options after Paul George and the attention that he draws, It could be like a 1-2 combo with Jimmy Butler, who always attacks, and Paul George, who always shoots from the perimeter. So, but, I'm just getting into fantasy land. Like, they're not getting Paul George. But something along those lines would be what the Heat are missing. If the Heat could get something like that, I mean, they would be the shit. But they're short one big time, shot creator, shot taker.
And guts and playoff experience, it's all there.
Yeah.
And that coach can coach.
Yeah.
He can just coach.
Very well
He's
coached.
been doing it for a long time, and he still looks like a kid, and he coaches like an adult.
Yeah. Skip, I think the thing is, plus, they play very, very good defense, but it's not like they rim protect. They'll draw a bunch of charges. They turn you over. They do a good job. And because Bam is so athletic, they can switch the pick and roll, and Bam will jump out there on a guard.
Yep.
With no problem, slide, and he's going to challenge everything.
Bam's another guy who I wouldn't be mad, just like Jaren Jackson. If he wins defensive player of the year, like, good for him, man. Like, there's a few guys this year that could have won that award. Marcus Smart had a hell of a season. Giannis, of course. Like, Rudy Gobert's always going to be in the conversation. So, Draymond was going to win it before he got hurt. Draymond definitely was going to win it before he got hurt. So there's a lot of guys. Mikal Bridges, Robert Williams of the Celtics, the center. So, defensive player of the year is a tough one this year, too.
Everything at the rim. Remember, I think it was last year, Skip, maybe it was in the bubble, where he blocked Jason Tatum's dunk to preserve a victory.
All right.
So we know what Bam is. He's always going to be a defensive player of the year candidate. You're right. They're loaded, Skip. But every time I wanted to get behind them, they lose 3 or 4 games in a row.
Okay, but if you step back and look at the big picture, they're 5th in defensive efficiency. That'll work. If you're top 5, you got a shot. They're 4th in opponents' field goal percentage allowed. That'll work.
Mm-hmm.
They're 3rd offensively in what's called true shooting percentage, so they can shoot it.
Right.
They're first in the NBA in three-point shooting. Man, sometimes these games just become three-point shooting contests.
Yeah.
As Doc always says, it's make or miss.
Yep.
Well, they can make a lot of threes on you, and they can make them in bunches and runs. And they're 2nd in three-point shooting defense.
Right.
So if you're first in makes and you're 2nd in stopping you
make
from
them,
making,
you don't let the other team
okay,
make them.
that gives you a shot.
Right.
They're also 5th in free throw shooting, which can
Late
apply
ball
going
game.
forward. Okay.
Yeah.
So I love that mix, and yet Vegas does not love that mix because, to your point, you got the Suns, then you got the Bucks, then you got the Nets. So the top 3 odds makers' choices.
Right.
And you have to go all the way down to 10-1 for the Heat, and all the way down to 14-1 for Memphis.
Yeah, because Vegas is telling you something. Vegas is telling you, yeah, these are good regular season teams, great regular season teams, but when the playoffs come, when the money's on the table, they just have traits about them or they have faults in their game that in the postseason, they're going to get exploited. In the postseason, you can't get away with that the same way you can win games in the regular season with that. You can't win in the postseason. People forget what postseason basketball is. Like, people forget, like, all these totals for the first couple games, for these play-in games, they all were going under. Like, people forget what postseason basketball is. Postseason basketball is rough. It's physical. The refs are swallowing the whistle. They're getting out the way. They're letting the players determine the outcome. Like, and you got to have some big-time shot makers who can fight through all that contact and score. Like, PJ Tucker was playing football with Kevin Durant last season in the playoffs in that series between the Nets and the Bucks, and KD was still finding ways to score 40 points, multiple times in that series. Like Devin Booker scored 40 points twice in 6 games versus the Bucks last year. Like you have to have guys that can do that going against football players, guys playing football on the basketball court against them. Like postseason basketball is so different. The coach is scheming against you, and he gets to see what you're doing for 4 to 7 games straight, depending on how long the series is. He's making adjustments. Like they're studying you in between games. Like there's time off between the games where they're gonna see you again. Like he gets to press different buttons and try different things, play different guys, put them in different spots. Like there's so much that goes into postseason basketball. It's a totally different monster than the regular season. Like in the regular season, if you play good as a committee, if you have pieces that fit well together, you can go to, the Lakers on a Wednesday and catch them slipping on the second game of a back-to-back for them, and you can beat them, and then you can play the Clippers the next night on the second game of a back-to-back for you, but you're rolling because you beat the Lakers yesterday, and the Clippers are on 2 games rest, and that's supposed to be a benefit for the Clippers, but the Clippers might be a team that plays bad when they have too much rest. They might play rusty, so then you catch the Clippers slipping. Like, it's a lot of dynamics that make the regular season different than the postseason. The postseason is a whole different animal, you know what I mean? So it's hard to pick teams that are just committee-based in the postseason. So I have an issue with people just picking, like, committee-based teams. Like, Skip having the Grizzlies and the Heat, like, that's just a little too committee-based for me on both sides, especially with Miami. That's just way too committee-based for me. And then I also have a problem, though, at the same time, I'm fair. I have a problem with just plugging guys in and just having no committee, no structure, like just KD, Kyrie, and a bunch of guys, and they're just going to win the whole thing. Like, nah, I don't see basketball like that. That's why I got the Suns, a team that plays by committee but has ballers too, like go-to guys too. I like them coming out the West, and that's why I got the Celtics, a team that plays by committee but has go-to guys when they need it too. Like, it's a combination of this to make a great overall team that can play well in the regular season as well as the postseason. That's just how I see it.
14-1? I'm saying give me some of that, please. So give me Memphis in the West, give me the Heat in the East, and I'll just say on just sheer experience, just on the Pat Riley factor, I will take Heat over Grizz in the finals. The Grizz are going to get back to several finals, and they will win them. They might win 2 or 3 finals before Ja is finished with this group. Right. But right now, I'll go Heat because I think they are perfectly positioned, laying in the weeds atop the East to win it all.
Well, Skip,
I can tell you right now, Skip, there ain't no way in hell that's going to be the finals this year. There's no way it's going to be Heat Grizzlies. And if it was Heat Grizzlies, I like the Grizzlies in that matchup. There's no way it's Heat Grizzlies though in the NBA Finals. This is a crazy selection by Skip Bayless, yo. At least Shannon, he just ran it back from last year, and that could very well happen. That was what I was thinking for a while too. I was thinking Suns Bucks too, throughout the course of the season. But I like the Celtics now. But man, Heat over Grizzlies, you bugging.
I still believe Giannis is the best player, although I think from looking at the early indication is that Jokic is going to win on the back-to-back MVP. That's what it looks. That's the way it's trending.
I can't argue.
But Giannis, after what he did in the finals last year, 50 in the clincher, 3 of the 6 games that they played, he had 40 plus. And there's really, my question is, the Heat can do a good job because the Heat can build a wall. The Heat, everybody else is like, let Giannis play one-on-one. The Heat say, no, we're not going to let you play one-on-one. But Skip, now with Holiday.
Remember in the bubble,
yes,
they did a number on it.
Yes.
And if it comes to that, I believe they can do a number on it.
But
you can't build a wall on Giannis no more. Giannis is different. Giannis makes moves faster. He shoots better. He's gotten better as a passer. I used to have a problem with Giannis. I felt like he was an okay passer, but not really a good passer. Giannis is a good passer now. Giannis will hit the guys, and he'll hit them in stride, and he'll hit them right in their shooting pocket, and they'll make those shots, and he'll be under control when he's kicking it out. He won't get called for a charge or anything like that. He can finish over you. He can finish around you. He just has a better feel for the game. Once again, his shot has gotten better, especially the mid-range. The mid-range shot has gotten better. And the three-point shot, some years he shoots 33%, some years it's 30, some years it's 29, 31, whatever the case is. But he just looks more comfortable shooting it. As long as he looks comfortable shooting it and he does that little in-between dribble where he takes a little step back and shoots it, I'm fine with that. As long as Giannis is just playing in the flow of the game, Giannis is going to get his naturally. And if he does have a game where he's making his shots, good night.
You said you like the other guy, Middleton. You say he's their closer.
He is.
Holiday has been sensational. Holiday has been able to score the basketball.
They're really good.
Yes.
The more I watch them, the more I say, that's a really
With
good
Bobby
basketball
Portis
team.
and Brook Lopez.
I got it.
The Bucks are a team I've said this in previous videos. The Bucks are a team that winning a championship did wonders for them. They move with just a whole different type of swag now that they won the championship. Now that they won the championship, you feel it. You feel it. And it's not just 2020 hindsight of, oh, they won, because I picked them to win. But, they just, that championship did a lot for their confidence. It did a lot for the coaching staff, letting them know, hey, we're doing the right thing after all. And then it kind of, they had a lot of questions. The Bucks were in a predicament where if they didn't win that championship last year, if they had got bounced by just the Nets with just KD, Coach Bud could have got fired if KD was behind the three-point line. Or he would have been on the hot seat this season where if they didn't win it this year, then he would have had to go. Or they would have made an adjustment or maybe moved off Drew Holiday for a more offensive point guard or did something. A lot could have changed with Milwaukee. That championship did a lot for them. And it kind of cemented this group getting an opportunity to go for a run going forward. So, kudos to Milwaukee for stepping up. And I just, like I said earlier, I just think that the defense has fallen off a little bit without PJ Tucker. And it just makes them a little more vulnerable. Bobby Portis is a great scorer, but he doesn't bring any of the defense or any of the shot blocking. He doesn't have the presence that Brook Lopez has when Brook Lopez is right. And I don't know if Brook Lopez is going to be able to just plug him in and if he's just going to be shooting well. I suspect that he might have some shooting struggles coming back. He's been back for a little bit, but I suspect that he might have some shooting struggles. So I worry about the Bucks a little bit. I do. I can't lie. And Coach Bud, he's a good players coach, and he understands these guys well. My critiques with Coach Bud is kind of the opposite of my critiques with Coach Kerr. Coach Kerr, I feel like just he just nails the system down. It's system. And with Coach Bud, it's kind of the opposite. It's more free-flowing. It's more on the players. He doesn't make as many adjustments, But we'll see. We'll see if Coach Bud can be a little less stubborn. He had to get, they had Trae Young bust their ass in Game 1 in that Eastern Conference Finals last year. He let Trae Young bust their ass for the whole game, and it took until Game 2 for him to say, hey, maybe I'll have Brook Lopez jump up on these screens instead of playing under.
They got Brook back now. Yeah. They are formidable. Mm-hmm. Never loved the coach, but he's pretty good.
Right.
And yet, boy, do I love Spo. And Taylor Jenkins has really grown on me because I just like his poise. I like his demeanor.
Yeah.
There's a calm about him that they really feed off of.
Wow, you really read on the limb.
Okay, I just told you. I can hear it creaking and cracking underneath me.
Yeah, I get what Skip is getting at, but come on, dude. We are not seeing a Heat Grizzlies finals. That is not happening, bro.
It's a long fall.
I got some.
Yeah. Shannon went safe and safe. Safe and safer. Way to go. Congratulations.
You
got guts.
Now, if you told me
it's
one game.
It's going to be fun to watch.
Either
way it shakes out, gentlemen. I can't wait for it to start.
Yeah, man. I can't wait for it to start either. NBA playoffs, very exciting stuff. Once again, I got the Suns over the Celtics in 6. Suns over the Celtics in 6. Devin Booker, Finals MVP. It could go to Chris Paul too. We'll see how that plays out. The NBA wants to give it to Chris Paul probably. So we'll see how that plays out. But Suns over the Celtics in 6. These NBA playoffs are going to be some of the funnest playoff matchups that I've seen in recent memory. I'm trying to think when we've had so much parity in the league. But it's it feels like every team has one or two stars and every team is kind of evenly matched. So we're going to get some really good games, some really competitive games, and it's going to make for just some, highly entertaining matchups and just some great basketball. And we're going to have a lot of clarity on where certain players stand in the ranking of who the best players are in the league and what next season is going to look like. So, I'm very juiced for it. Suns over the Celtics in 6. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.